What impact does acknowledgement have on our self-worth, on our ability to build connection outward and within? Let's discuss today. Childhood psychologist, author, and speaker, the great Miss Dr. Jody Carrington joins us live for today's 102nd episode, Reconnection. I'm your host, Amanda Ashley, and this is Afternoon Cocktail. Welcome. Dr. Jody Carrington, welcome to Afternoon Cocktail. Oh, I think you're muted. There she is.
Okay, we'll try that again. Hello! Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure.
How many times have you said that in the last, 14 months? I think you're muted.
Pretty much almost every show, to be honest.
Oh, and I didn't want to be the one.
It's okay. I mean, it happens, this is life. So thank you so much for accepting this invitation. I'm so excited to talk to you because I had mentioned earlier, we were talking a little bit before. This year has just really taught me a lot. Reconnection, this whole show's foundation is pretty much built on connection, and your practice and everything that you speak about is so inspiring, and I can't wait to share this with our viewers. Can you share a little bit about who you are, your background, and the journey that influenced and inspired your career?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm coming to you from Canada, so way up on the west side of Canada in a little town in Alberta. And I'm a psychologist, and I'm an author and a speaker. I wrote a best-selling book called Kids These Days that I still don't know how we did that because I had to Google how to write a book. But I grew up in a small town, and it's still the school where I was raised is still K to 12. So there was 22 of us that started kindergarten together, and the same 19 of us graduated together. So we knew everything about each other. And here's what's crazy about it is it was a teacher that changed my life. So in grade 10, I remember where I was standing when my teacher, Mrs. Holly Nordstrom, told us that one of the most popular kids in our class had been killed. I remember what she was wearing. I don't remember what she said, but I remember how she made us feel. And I remember thinking, even as a 16-year-old kid, if the big people can connect to you, the little people will be just fine. And I went home that night and I said to my dad, I know what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be a psychologist. And he was so excited that I was going to get out of this small town that he said he'd pay for it. And what he didn't realize is it's going to take me 13 years to get a PhD. So that's what I did. And I worked for our police force in the middle of that. I studied lots of trauma. I really like adults and, relationship and connection and how trauma sort of messes it all up. And then I did my residency in Nova Scotia, which is not very far from you. I had to do a rotation with kids. And I said, listen, I'm not a huge fan of kids. And they're like, listen, we think you're like one. We think you'd be a really good fit. So they weren't wrong. And I fell in love with the tiny humans. And I realized we know even less about kids and trauma than we know about adults and trauma. And I came back to the province where I grew up and took a job on a locked psychiatric inpatient unit for kids, where for 10 years, I learned lots about relationship and connection and what disconnection does to the human spirit. And then we had 3 kids in 2 years, which was ridiculous because I was old. And then I almost had it was awful. I thought I was going to listen, I had a PhD in child psychology at this point. I'm a seasoned vet. My husband has a PhD in animal science, which really should be helpful. It wasn't. We had our own personal kid. And I was like, I've never felt more incompetent in my life. And then we had twins. So we moved back to that town, the small town where my husband grew up, because he thought it would be better if I was closer to his mother. Anyway, and so then we started this private practice here, and then I started speaking about all the things that kids and families had taught me, and then I wrote a book about it, and now I get to speak around the globe, which has been super fun. And the whole platform, similar to you, is based on it all comes back to reconnection.
It really does. It's so amazing, right? How life unfolds in the least expected ways too. I mean, it's funny. So the two things that I love that I love that you're so candid about. Well, number one is you were saying that you feel like you're better with other people's children than you are with your own. And
Yeah.
I feel that way too. Like I teach, in so many ways. And I feel like a lot of parents could probably speak to that. It's like we respond better to other people's children than we do to our own sometimes. And, why do you think that is?
Oh, I'm so glad you're going to ask, because I was just going to say, do you want to know why? Because I need a theory to figure out why. I'll tell you why it is. Okay, so the heart of everything. So this is all through grad school. What people taught me was that, you have to do cognitive behavioral therapy. This is the best way. We got to look at our thoughts and change the behavior. This is the answer. Yeah? Behaviorism is sort of the foundation of anything we've ever done in sort of even cultural changes or leadership management. It's all about behavior. Here's the problem. The theory of behaviorism is based on what we learned from a rat.
Oh.
It's dumb, right? You reward a rat with a pellet, it does good things. You take it away, it stops that behavior. We're like, holy moly, let's do that with kids. And we've now come into this place, particularly in this season, where you can't take away enough stuff from a kid to make them be kind. The heart of all effective parenting and effective relationships, full stop, is this thing called emotional regulation. When you are emotionally regulated, which basically means when you're not losing your friggin' mind, you have the capacity to make great choices. And when you bring a baby home from the hospital, how do they let you know what they need?
They lose their freaking mind.
They cry, they lose their friggin' mind. Guess what the job of big people is? To walk them home. It's based on a Ram Dass quote. You probably appreciate this. Ram Dass is a dead philosopher. He said this, most profound statement in the human language, I think, or the English language, I'm sorry. He says this, we are all just here walking each other home. We are all just here walking each other home. And in this process of big people and little people, our job, even with our best friends, is when they get most dysregulated, our job is to walk them home. And then to surround yourself with people who can walk you home. Yeah. And when I spend a lot of time with my babies and they're emotionally dysregulated, I am so much better at walking Remy home, your baby, than I am mine, because I'm regulated around Remy. Oh, God. Oh, he's cute and he's so smart. My kids, stop it. Don't you take that. Hey, you, right? They look like us, sound like us, smell like us, and we're like very invested in getting them regulated. And so we have less space.
Do you think, sorry to interrupt, I mean, do you think we're
It is your show.
shorter? You think we're shorter with our children because we have higher expectations because they're our own, and like I tell Remy, like, you step out in the world, like you're my little representation, like I can't let you go out and be a slob, like you don't want to brush your teeth today, well, I'm not going to let you be the smelly kid in the class today. Like, this is our arguments in the morning.
Absolutely, right? Like we are, and I think we take this and listen, we're wired for connection. And we are most connected to the things that we are in charge of, that we are responsible for. And there's something profound in becoming a parent, whether a foster parent or a biological parent or adoptive parent, when you are charged with the care of something so vulnerable, yet so valuable, we become very invested in that process. And when we are invested, we get dysregulated quicker. Right? It's almost like, let me liken it to being on a first date, right? Even the second date. I don't got a lot of skin in the game. You're so, stop, right? And then they maybe are not feeling well and we're like, what? Can I help you? Listen, after we've been married for 10 years and we got 3 kids on the ground, you think I should have much more space for you. But when you said, I don't feel good, I'm like, oh, for the love of Jesus, you are fine, right? We are so much more intense with the people we love because if they're not okay, we're not okay. Mm-hmm. If we're not okay, they're not okay. So we're much more invested. If Remy gets sick, I'm okay to walk him home. It's okay. Because I know he's got a mama and a dad and people who can love him on that process. But I'll be okay, even if he's not okay. But it's not the same with my babies. So I'm much more invested. And the more invested I become, I mean, that's why we're here, this thing called love and connection. It's what keeps us going. But it's also where the greatest loss, the greatest fear live. So it comes with a price. Yeah. Does that make sense? So we much more invested in that place, which is so true than we often forget, which is the whole key, I think, to your platform and mine, which is just to continually remind each other that connection is all the reason we're here, and that the people we love the most are the hardest to give it to. The people we
Yeah.
love the most are the hardest to give it to,
So true.
right?
So true. I know. I think about that a lot. Like the people that are closest to us actually see like the best and the worst sides of us, right? They get it all, and
Oh
it's
my
it's
gosh.
kind of sad,
I know. And
you
it's so funny because here's the thing, like, so I love the word connection, but I got to tell you what I love more. I love the word reconnection, because connection, in all honesty, Amanda, is easy. I can connect to my neighbor. Hey, how you doing? I can go on a first date. Connection's easy. I can have an affair. I can buy coffee for the guy behind me. You know what's harder? Reconnection. Reconnecting to the thing that has been disrupted or lost or disconnected, or we've had a fight. You and I have a disagreement that our business is not going the way that we wanted it to. And I was like, Amanda, for the love, you're right. The reconnection is coming back in and saying, hey, can we talk about that?
Yeah.
It is, even in marital relationships, John and Julie Gottman have the most profound platform around research in marital relationship. After 45 years, John would say this: the one predictor of couples that make it and couples that don't isn't how much they disagree or fight. It is their capacity to repair that predicts
Mhm.
success. So it is in this reconnection that we're not born with a skill to apologize. We're not born with empathy. Somebody has to show us how to do that, which is why it's so critically in this lifetime to surround yourself, to connect with the people who can walk you home, because we're going to be all in this state of dysregulation at some point. Can you sit with the moms, the dads, the psychologists, the musicians that remind you, oh, you're such a good mama, come on, we got it, let me take Remy for a weekend, you go, you would say this to me, can I take Liv? Yes, you can I teach her how to play the guitar? Oh, yes, you can. I love you. Right? When anybody sinks into your kids, have you ever had this experience where somebody grabs your hands and says to you, Remy is amazing. I don't know what you're doing right. You and Beau are crushing this. What
Yeah.
happens to you? Right?
Well, you melt, right? And I'm going through this with Remy's. So this is Remy's first year of UPK, preschool, and it's been a weird time with COVID. He's going to school in a mask. This is his first experience
Mhm.
out in the wild. He's building his own connections for the first time, and his mind's developing, and he's coming home and he's telling me stories, and his teacher, like, I'm always nervous, like to send him off because, like, we don't want him to, as a parent, you hope that what they carry with them on their own is, not the bad things that we habitually say, or that we're embarrassed to admit, like the things that happen in our home. And sometimes, like, he's a very talkative kid, like very talkative. He's a little bossy, I mean, a lot
I'm
bossy.
shocked. I'm
Oh
shocked.
yeah,
You get
very
that part.
bossy, so
No,
like
talkative, the part that I was talking about.
but I like wonder, like, when his parents, when his teacher calls or like addresses us, like I'm always like, like nervous, because I'm like, is what did we, like, how is he, like, like, my instant thought is never that he's amazing.
Right.
It's that
Right.
he did something wrong.
Right. We're always like, what? What?
Yes.
It's we don't even answer hello anymore. We're like, what do you do?
Well,
Yeah.
it's like your defense almost goes up too, as the parent,
Sure.
because you're just like, you're nervous, like, you don't know what information you're gonna be on the receiving end of, and you just hope it's the best. But I feel like I'm doing the best I can. I'm sure I could do better, but I need to learn how to also,
And I
so
think,
it's
yeah,
go ahead.
I think that they're in the problem. Did I cut you off? Were you
No,
finished?
no, you didn't. I'm
Okay.
just blabbering.
Um, what I love about this, and I think this is the biggest lesson that I would love to share to your listeners today, is really this idea that people in the indigenous cultures have taught me this more than anything in this last season of way long overdue racial reckoning, is this idea of when you are acknowledged, you will rise. The critical importance of acknowledging and not trying to fix or not trying to suggest or make strategies or solutions. But when you are acknowledged, you will rise. And it's so critically important of what happens when Remy's teacher acknowledges you, when they call and say, hey mama, I got to tell you, this kid is hilarious. Can I just tell you what he did today? You know, we're
Mhm.
so inclined to then rise and be like, oh, thanks. What did you need? Like, I mean, when teachers call me about my kids, I mean, at the end of it, I'm like bringing them wine and oh, like, I mean, can I get you an RSP? Like, I want to buy you a new whiteboard and a Chromebook. Like, I want to make out with them. And it's like which is inappropriate. I get it. So like, it doesn't, I'm just saying like that's how much we're invested. And so what I think I really want to remind, like, this is what I talk about every day, is don't ever underestimate your power of simply acknowledging. Our educators in this time of COVID love to hear from moms and dads, thank you. My
Yeah.
baby loves going to school. I can't imagine how hard the season is for you. Thank you so much for that craft you did yesterday. He came home so excited. You are so committed to my son. Thank you. That's in a disconnected world, in the middle of COVID, when we are having long overdue discussions around systemic oppression. Guess what that does? It drops your shoulders and makes us realize that we are in this human race together. It is our single most underused, most profound superpower.
And I think for that, the person on the other end of that is, it's almost like redefining their purpose. Because sometimes we get so caught up in, our lives and our stresses, and that we forget, like, we're like, oh man, like this day to get a message of hope and reassurance that, hey, you're doing something really awesome. Thank you. Thank you
Oh,
for all that you do. It means so much more.
well, and here's what I want to say is that, like, it is so okay. I mean, I'm over COVID and I am exhausted that, particularly white privileged people can't fucking get it. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not, are we?
Get it right.
Yeah, sorry. You can just,
No, you're fine.
okay, good. But it's like, that's what pisses me off so much right now in this world. And I think here's the beautiful part about this is that our legacy right now is so easy to create if you just be kind.
Yeah.
If you do the next right kind thing and not try to defend yourself or reason your way out of it, we are in a disaster of disconnect right now. And the revolution of reconnection means this is not the responsibility of a government official. This is not the responsibility of any one person. It is you and it is me in a position of showing up every day to the best of our capacity and making eye contact with somebody else, of buying a coffee, giving a compliment. When we do that collectively, we will rise. And those of us in a position of privilege, it is on us, on me, to do that even more significantly, because I have that's how you use resources. That's how you use privilege, is to be able to acknowledge as much as you can and give it away. It does as much for you as it does everybody else, but we forget that part. When I give somebody a compliment or buy somebody a coffee, Amanda, that's my fuel. That
Yeah.
does that does so much more for me. And when you surround yourself, when you sit with the winners, the conversation is different. And it's got to look diverse, which is why we get different opinions. But then the inclusion happens when I actually listen. When we actually listen. Does that make sense? There was a whole TED talk in there. Sorry.
No, it definitely makes sense to me. And I definitely believe this. It's contagious. Spreading good energy is contagious. And I think we all could use a little bit more of it. And you would think this time I think in some ways it has opened up. Um, I think it's made some people more compassionate. But at the same time, there is so much division, and it's really heartbreaking to me, like I said, like this show, like it's all, I just wanted to throw some positive energy out into the universe, and also to feel connected to people. And I hope that anybody that watches this, if you're watching this now, that you get some inspiration out of this. It's inspired me, and I think it's making me a better person. And in turn, I hope that these connections make you a better person. And I think that's what we all need to be doing. That's our civil service, right? As human beings, just take care of one another.
Well, exactly. I love that you say that. And do the next right kind thing. Some days you won't even have a bra on. You can't even put her together. Doesn't matter. That's enough. The next days you're baking muffins for the local fire department. Like, all of those things are more than enough. And I think the part that we forget sometimes is that right now, Here's my worry. I'll tell you, I don't think the ramifications of this pandemic have even begun to manifest. And it breaks my heart, but I'll tell you, as a psychologist, I feel very concerned about what the mental health fallout will be, because once we remove the stressor, the stress response still remains. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Even if I take away the owie, the thing that caused the inflicted pain, it is healing that takes the longest time. Yeah. And we have been in a heightened state of arousal as a globe for 14 months. It's not just like, let's assist in the wildfires in California. Oh my goodness, there was a tsunami. Let's get everybody pouring our resources here. Oh, let's fight homelessness. Or this is a globe. People are exhausted and overwhelmed and done and tired. And so when you're tired, guess what it does? It divides you. There's no room for gray. You're chippy. Yeah? Even people like out in the community used to be nice, but now they're chippy. And then I don't have anybody to fill me up, because I used to get that at school, or I used to get that at church, or I used to get that, when we would all get together and jam. But for the physical safety of our communities, we've had to take that away for at least a year. The ramifications of that are, it's going to take us a while to get back into this place of being healthy and whole and being able to give it away again. So whatever you got today in any capacity, your only job is to just do the next right kind thing, even if it is as simple as waving to your neighbors. That is, you cast a stone, right? That's our goal.
It's so funny. I bike ride a lot, and I have a seat for Remy. So one of our bonding activities, and for me, it was kind of like killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I get my exercise. It actually
And you
like
have
is very
you.
meditative. But
Yeah.
he's in front of me, so I have my arms around him. We're very close, and he gets to see everything that I see. We talk a lot, and I think about. I noticed like one day, so we got a bell. My sister gave me a bell for my birthday last year. So every time that I taught Remy, like anytime you see somebody and we say hi, we ring the bell. So like it's got this perfect like ding dong, like every time we see somebody, it's hilarious. But like he is so on his own. He'll be the first to say hi to anybody he
Oh,
sees.
I
So
love
like if he
that.
steps outside the house, like he sees, hi Steve, hi, hi Megan, hi Joey, hi this, he knows like everybody's names, like we're pretty close with our neighbors, so like he'll say hi to all of them. He'll just say hi doggy to the random person walking the dog, he acknowledges everything. And I think it has to do with our bike rides.
Yeah.
And that's where it started, but it's that learned behavior.
You're showing him how to do it, right?
And I think it's important too, because the one thing that irks me and that I can never understand, because I've been like this my whole life. I was that kid, and I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure I got it from my mom,
Mm.
but I'm not sure exactly where. But at the same time, it always surprised me because, like, growing up as an early teen in high school, I had a graduating class of 1,100 kids. And, like I would say hi to everybody, anybody that if our eyes are meeting, what does it take to just go the extra mile to do that, and to acknowledge. But it surprises me, even in my adult life, how many people just will look right through you.
Yes, yes. And I think it's really to the heart of disconnect. I think it is a gift for people to have these conversations like you and me can, just really reminding ourselves that that's why we're here, is that simple act of connection. And I think so many people, the theory behind it for me is the sicker you become, for sure, from an emotional perspective, a mental health perspective, is you lose the capacity for dual awareness, which means I can notice another and take into context what they might be feeling, how I am impacting them. The healthier we are, we're much more equipped to have that thing called dual awareness. The more we get in physical or emotional pain, we lose that. We get very internally focused. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So think about, when you're, for example, I'll just tell you this, which may or may not make sense to some people, but when you're planning to have a baby, you make a birth plan and you would like this and you would like this and you would like this, and you sort of organize all the shit. What happens when you're having a 10-point contraction?
It all goes
You
out the
could
window.
give a rip. Like, I don't want my husband. I don't like you. You can fuck right off. And like, I had a birth plan, but like, where's the lavender? I could get like, I'm going to throat punch. Like I said to Aaron, like I tried to put his wedding ring through his finger because I lose dual awareness because I'm in such physical pain that I can only focus on me. Okay. And so the point, particularly with mental health, is how do we ground ourselves, acknowledge each other so that we can then give it away, is the key to really disconnecting, reconnecting this disconnected world. And I think it is on each of us to sort of be like, how do we look after ourselves to do that? So much of it comes back to connecting to our people, not just any people, our people, the ones who see us truly, reconnecting to our breath, reconnecting to why we're on this planet. Then I can give that away. I'm in a position to give that away. When I forget those things, I lose my dual awareness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think about this a lot as a performer too. I don't know if it's just the area I'm in or maybe I really suck, but I don't think it's either of those two things. A lot of the shows that I play, um, granted, like I'm hired for different reasons, like there's some gigs that I take. I'm a piano player, guitar player, I sing,
There's
like, and there's shows that I perform and I know I'm being hired as like ambience music, that incidental music thing. Like I feel like that's been half my career, so now it's just got a name. But
yeah.
what's like, like I played a show last night, and it's at a country club and people apprehensively clap, if they clap at all. And to me, it's like, do I live in Japan or am I in New York? Japan, they're not supposed to, I think it's Japan, right? Where they don't clap as a sign of appreciation. It's not that. That's not the case here. I think it's people, but people just don't, I don't know what it is. I don't think it's because they're not listening though.
No, I think that it's the incidental music, and if nobody else does it, I'm not going to do it, right?
That's the thing.
I love that. I love those times where, I mean, I'm never on the stage as a musician because I always want to be, but like you wouldn't want me on the stage. And so what I love whenever I've been in a situation listening to somebody perform in that way, the crazy clapping by the one person, I love to be that one person because I love the musician's response, which is always like, oh,
yeah.
When you're acknowledged, you will rise. Don't forget that. And we often, who's incidental? Homeless people. You know who's incidental? People who don't look like you, sound like you, smell like you. This is the underlying understanding of systemic oppression.
Yeah.
When you're supposed to be incidental music, it's not my job to clap for you. Are you fucking kidding me right now? Watch what happens when you do.
Yeah. It's really weird because I know if I had you in the audience frantically clapping, right, that would make somebody else frantically clap along with you. And then the next song, 3 people would clap. The next song,
where's your
everybody
desire
would clap.
to play? Where's your desire to play? You're going to look at me and say, is there anything you want to hear? And then after the next one, you're going to look at me and I'm going to be like, oh my, amazing. Oh, right. And so how do we then, and it doesn't even have to be loud. Here's the misunderstanding that we often get, right? Is that I show up like this in any conversation, right? This is authentically who I am. My dad's light up, the father, the one who I still want to impress more than anybody on the planet. This is how excited he gets when he's proud of me. He does this. And shoot the lights out. I am so jacked, right? It's not how you do it, it's if you do it. So if I'm in a crowd, and even if you're playing incidental music and you've seen this before from the stage, you look at somebody and they do this to you.
Yeah.
Right? That's equally as reinforcing of your talent or of your message or of you being there to share the world with what you have. That you touch that person. So it doesn't have to be big, loud. It just needs to be felt. And it's an energy that then other people go, oh,
yeah. The acknowledgement's big, and I think about it. And the funny thing is, so most times that I have these type of shows, right, where this happens and I feel like nobody cares, there's freaking crickets, but there's like 60 human bodies in this room right now. Actually, sometimes it feels like the atmosphere gets quieter after I finish. which feels
Right.
even worse, right?
Well, and then the story in your head is, do I suck, or are
Yeah,
they all in clinical depressive states? Like I mean, right? And then of course the story always comes back to, obviously it's me, right?
it does. Yes. Yeah. But here's the kicker. Okay.
Okay, tell
So
me.
afterwards, like last night, I had 6 people come up to me,
Yes.
and tell me after, as I'm packing up my stuff, putting tips in the jar, telling me how much they enjoyed the music, this and that, very complimentary. And I'm just thinking, like, okay, like if I would have known this 3 hours ago, I could have delivered a totally different performance, you know? I would have
I
gave you
know,
my all. I mean, I was
I know,
giving my all regardless, but I would
yes,
have
yes.
like upped the energy, like had more fun. Like we could have had a lot of fun together, is what I wanted to tell them. You
Where
know?
the hell were you a half an hour ago? Okay. But what do you think that's about? What do you think that's about? Do you think that's really about oh, are we still there?
I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was doing all kinds of crazy things here. Just 1 second. I think I gotta no.
A lag.
Yeah.
You're coming through to us, okay?
Okay, good, good. I
Yeah.
just changed the screen around there. So what I think is really interesting about this is that it's like, in the moment, how do we create that energy? How do we be the first? And I watched this beautiful YouTube, like, this is ridiculous. It's very old, how to create a movement. And it's really about just that one person trying it. It's really about being brave enough to get up there and actually perform. It's being brave enough to actually applaud. It's being brave. And all of a sudden, that's how you create a movement. Nobody ever sort of gets on the same page and all moves together. And I think when we're tired and exhausted, and I think this is my concern, Amanda, as we move out of this like COVID exhausting state, is that everybody's so tired that they can't even contribute.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do we then be that person, right? Like, you need it so much. People didn't know that.
Yeah.
Right. And if you would have just said, guys, I'm coming up here to perform for you tonight, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear if there's anything about this you appreciate. Oh,
It's
okay.
Yeah, it's so true. It really could change the whole dynamic. And I mean, that applies to anybody and anything. It's like, just think of like what that acknowledgement could do for somebody who's having a shit day. They could be having a real shit day, but you're like 2 seconds of your time. Like, this is actually kind of funny. I was in a rush, shocker, like a week ago, because I'm always trying to squeeze too much stuff in the little time. Yeah. So I like ran to Target. I dropped off my son to preschool.
Yeah.
There was a Target nearby. I went there. I like did a quick sweep of like grocery shopping and was like in the makeup area picking up like blush. I need a new blush. And this woman starts talking to me about nails, like, and like she was trying to decide like which nails, like, have you ever like worn these brands? And I'm in such a rush at this time, Dr. Jody. Like, seriously, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I do not have freaking time to humor this woman, to talk to her. She obviously wanted to talk to somebody, and she was very nice, and I gave her as much as I could of me in that moment, and I made my recommendation, and then I was like, I gotta go, and I ran, like ran to the self-checkout. But like, you think about that, like that could have been that woman's like one connection of the day. And I didn't want to be rude,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
really wanted it to not be an unpleasant experience, but it is what it is, but
You,
still, it's taking that time to be considerate.
and sometimes it doesn't even have to be a lot. Like, it's funny you say that, because I left Costco yesterday and we're still very much in a lockdown up here. And so the guy checking my bill is behind his plexiglass, and I said his name, which was Abdul. And I looked at his name tag and I said, Abdul, thank you so much. He stepped out from behind. He had a mask on, so still safely. And he stepped out from behind and he said, thank you for saying my name.
Aw,
And it
that's
took
nice.
me a half a second. And it's the reconnection in this disconnected world. Don't ever underestimate your power. And it took me a second to get the B and the D and to understand how I would pronounce it, but I wanted to say it, right? Our name is the first word any of us have learned.
Yeah.
And when you say it, it's that reconnection that allows you, just for that moment, right? I've often had people say this to me when I get my coffee. I always try to read their name tag, and I always try to think, oh, thank you, Levi, or thank you, whoever. And I cannot tell you, first of all, how much free shit I get, but also how many times people say this to me. Do you know me? And I say, no, I don't think. How'd you know my name? Well, because it's on your boob. So, but we're just so disconnected that when
Yeah.
somebody says our name, we're sort of a little bit like, oh,
Startled.
we pull back into connection with each other. And so it's just those little things, like even that 30 seconds talking about nails, you didn't say, I can't talk right now and run away. You said, how about this and this and this? And I'm sorry, I have to go, and I'm gone, right? It's not if you're going to do it, it's how you do it.
Yeah.
That matters so significantly.
I definitely agree. I have an Abdul who's my bank teller. He's my favorite bank teller. And
Uh,
he's like every time, well, honestly, like I've been going, I never used to go through the drive through till like the pandemic.
yeah.
And yeah, like I don't see him anymore. But like every time I would go in, there was always like the same three bank tellers, and we would talk. And sometimes I'd have Remy on my arm, and they watched him grow. He had like a 2-year-old child. Like we knew each other's lives in
Yeah.
some way because we talked for like
Awesome.
2 years. We
Yeah.
transact, like we transacted maybe once, sometimes 2 times a week, so we got to know
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
And it made my banking experience always pleasant and happy to walk in there, and this extends to business, right? Like I think about it, like customer service exists, or like I should say loyalty plans exist for the sake of connection, right?
100%.
People sign up for extended periods of time because they feel connected in some way. They feel that they're being taken care of,
Oh,
so why don't we just do more of that in general?
it's free. Can I tell you this as an entrepreneur? I mean, I know as you grow your business, and I mean, as an entrepreneur, I speak to our team every day about this. How we treat people who choose to align, connect with us is the biggest commodity we have. And I honestly cannot say it enough. It is about just being kind. And listen, there's a 2-part rule to that. Be kind and don't tolerate bullshit, in that order.
Yeah.
It's not about, okay, sorry. Be kind and don't tolerate bullshit, in that order, particularly as a woman in this place of like, oh, you're just supposed to be nice, right? Listen, the strongest, who knew that the biggest superpower that needs to be at the table right now is emotional language and connection, which women have been defined as weak historically. Guess what? Who knew we could be so strong? This is the time where we really need to step into this idea of kindness and connection, and then also being able to not tolerate bullshit. Is a 2-part series, but kindness must always come first.
Yeah, I can't agree with that more. I think kindness is everything. It really does change everything for people. I was
Surprise
thinking about
people.
this. Yeah, it does. It does. It throws people off their track because they're so acclimated to, getting the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think about this. I was listening as I was getting dressed this morning. I was listening to you ever listen to Tones and I? It's very poppy.
No.
So there's a song called Bad Child.
Okay.
And it was ironic. It was like kind of serendipitous, like for it to be playing this morning. I never heard it before, but it was very, it just got me thinking, as I'm preparing to have this conversation with you, like a lot of times we slap labels on our children, on ourselves, on, that builds up this preconception, like with the other people that we expose our lives to. And I think like, one time Remy said, because like when he's bad and I'm reprimanding him, I'm like, you were bad, you were bad today. Like you did some bad things. And one day he said, yeah, Mama, I know I'm bad. And I said, no, Remy, you're not bad. Like that when I'm more emotionally regulated, I'm saying, no, you're not bad. Why would you say that? Don't say that about yourself. And then you realize this is me feeding into his like little psyche that I don't want him to think he's a bad kid because he's not. What he did was a bad thing. So
Yes.
now I'm choosing my language differently because of that, and I
Exactly.
I think it's, like with kids, that some troubled kids. You had I listened to your interview with Tilt, which was
Yeah.
awesome. I loved it. And you had mentioned the story about the bus driver. That could you share that story again because it's so profound.
Yeah, I would love to. The kids who need it the most are the hardest to give it to. But at the heart of anything, you can't teach or connect or build trust with somebody who is dysregulated. So our idea is always to do this thing, collect and then you direct. And for such a long time, I think that there's always, we label kids as the bad ones. And oftentimes they haven't had anybody who has collected them, who has connected to them. So they get really standoffish. Hoodies are up, hair is down. They got two fingers up all the time. And they're like, yeah, whatever. And here's what's really surprising. When you put it into context, they have a story that would bust your soul. And when you have that dual awareness and you start to understand more about other people, or you start to understand this kid, I would often say bus drivers are such a critical part of the school system, but we rarely ever provide a context for them about kids. And so, I can say, can you imagine this guy has to pick up this kid who's got, he's notoriously late. He's a big spitballer on the bus. He's been kicked out of 3 different schools. Once I learn about this kid, I might say to this bus driver, hey, Stan, can I tell you something? You're going to pick up this kid. He's been kicked out of 2 different schools, and he's a tough one. I heard he can spitball the side, like as long as a football stadium. And I really want to know if you can help me. Like, he's been in 3 foster homes in the last 2 years. He has never had a dad. His mama's in jail. And I just want somebody to know that this kid loves Skittles. And he also loves the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know you do too. I'm just wondering, when he comes on, I wanted you to know that about him so that you could just see if we could get him here till Christmas. Can you help me do that? And Stan, the bus driver, who's been driving for us for, 20 years, he has 6 grandkids. He says, what do you mean he doesn't have a dad? What do you mean? Well, actually, nobody's ever been kind to him for very long. He's like, can you do that for him? Yeah, I can. So the next day, this kid comes down, with his Steelers hoodie on, hoodie's up. You're not allowed to have your hoodies on, but he's got his hoodie up and his, walking in. Stan's first thing when he gets on the bus isn't, hey, get your hoodie off. It's Steelers. Go Steelers. You love them. Hey, me too. Me too. They're going to have a good year this year. And this kid has
He doesn't even know how to respond.
Right? Because I have allowed Stan to then have the dual awareness about this baby. Can you imagine if we had the time and space to just wonder what might be going on for somebody else? If I told you that mama that was asking you about nails the other day, had just buried her husband and, didn't know where her baby was. And she was on the 10-minute break from the hospital because her baby has leukemia. You would have let's talk about nails.
Yeah.
And you might have been able to give her 3 more minutes. But when we put it into context, it allows for that dual awareness to sink in. And I think in this fast-paced, disconnected place, that's what we lose, is we're all just here walking each other home.
I love that, the whole walking each other home thing, because it is so true,
There's a song in there, isn't there?
Yeah, for
don't you
sure.
think we could write a song about that?
For sure. I'll work on it. I'll send it to you. It will have your like voice in the background. I'll mix it in. But it is so true, and I think that we can, I just think like, with this kid too, like you're saying, like if you didn't kind of give that little insight into his life to this driver, like how he would have reacted or treated him forward, his interaction would have been entirely different. The interaction between the 2 of them could have been entirely different, but how this kid carries his day, and I think about that with anybody, like we do this to our own families, like where maybe there's a kid in the family that's a little bit more rambunctious, or, like you tell them, oh, we want him over at certain times or this and that, or even like with friends, like you can only handle certain dosages. But I think like those people start to feel like, those parents start to feel like, man, like, is my kid too much, or am I doing something wrong? Like, is my kid a bad kid? We question everything. And I don't really think that's the case. I think it's more like being patient and like you're saying, empathetic to both the child and the parent,
Oh, if you want to change a world today, you'll pick up your phone and you will text somebody who is your people. So if you are still in if you stayed married during the pandemic, first of all, good job. But choose them. If you're co-parenting with somebody, choose them. And all I want you to do is text this to them. I don't know if I tell you this enough, but you matter to me. And watch what happens. Because the people we love the most are suspicious when we're kind. And I mean, my husband always says to me, what'd you buy?
What do you
right?
want?
What do you want? And I think that therein lies the superpower, right? Is that like if you want to, give a compliment or hang on to a kid or notice a homeless person and pay a compliment, say their name, do those things. I mean that's the point, right? We're just walking each other home. And if you've got anything to give, you're in a position of privilege, so do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really could change everything, especially in schooling too. Like how we treat our interactions with, like you said earlier, with the educators. Like just showing that gratitude for the people that are taking care of our babies, and also showing a little bit more gratitude towards one another, and trying to be more patient. It's really hard. I know. I'm struggling with it on the daily. It's
Yeah.
very hard to be patient with these little people that just constantly want your attention. But don't we all just need a little bit more attention? Like our
We all need a little more connection.
yeah,
So in the book, I say every time you hear yourself saying this kid is attention seeking, change it to this kid is connection seeking
I
and
love
see
that.
how you show up.
Yeah, that was the quote I picked from. I came across that quote and I shared it because it's so true.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. Jody, Dr. Jody, tell us a little bit more about your book. Where can our audience find it and pick it up? And you never thought you'd be
Oh,
an author? How'd that even
oh
happen?
my gosh. After I wrote my dissertation, I was never going to write another friggin' thing again. And then I started to speak, and everybody was like, hey, and this is probably like, I don't know, a musician, I'm going to try to liken it, but you start to play, and people were like, that's really good. You should make an album.
Yeah.
And I just never, ever, it was never something that I wanted to do or that I could conceptually think about putting together. How do you get that? How do you produce it? How do you write it? Like, who prints it? Like, blah. I'm much more of a creative and a dreamer. I don't know how to get stuff together. So we figured it out, we put it together. And so, yeah, so the book is on the website, drjodycarrington.com. And we do this 4-part event series every year where we really want to create this community of people where, when you sit with the winners, the conversation is different. And there's actually this event coming up on May 8th, which is the day before Mother's Day, called Together, where I'm bringing some of the finest women together to sit at the table and talk about the power of what we talked about today, this female energy. So I would love you to be there.
Oh,
In
I'd
fact,
love
you
to
know
be
what?
there.
For your listeners, we didn't even talk about this, but I'll say it. So you can cut it out if you don't want it. But no, it's shit. It's live. I'm gonna say it anyway. If you're there's a link. So if you want to go, you can. If you use the code Jody, all of your listeners get 15% off of the ticket, and it's a virtual ticket. You can join me from New York, and you can see my mom's gonna. We're gonna talk a story about adoption. Fortune Feimster is taking the stage with me. She's one of the best comedians the United States has ever created, I think. Jillian Harris. So there's lots of really powerful women that are going to take the stage and talk a little bit about all kinds of things, but really what it means to be braver together. So I would love your community to join our community sometimes, and I can't wait to share our whole crew with you because I just love what you're doing, Amanda. This is phenomenal.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you and your time and your wisdom and for putting it out there. It's really inspiring and a pleasure to follow. So thank you so much for doing this today. Tell our audience one more time, like where they could be. Ugh, I can't talk. I'm scatting now. Can you tell our audience where they could find you? Your website?
Yeah, drjodycarrington.com is the website, and Instagram and Facebook is where we hang out quite a bit. And I do weekly lives, which it'll be a little bit late for you, but every morning I'm on there especially during COVID, at 7:30 Mountain Standard Time, just for a half an hour every morning, just to give a little bit of a shake up to the soul and reconnect with a powerful, positive, safe community. Yeah, we would love you to check us out
You do that every morning, you said?
Monday to Friday,
I love that. That's awesome. I'll tune in. And that's you said tell me the time one more time.
7:30 Mountain.
Okay. I'll have to figure that out in
Yeah,
our
I know.
time. I'm
I
not
am
sure what
so
that is.
awful. I can't convert it. Yeah.
But thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Really, really fun. Thank you for
Yeah, I
this
loved it too.
interview.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So today's theme was reconnection in Dr. Jody's honor. 2 months shy of 5 years and growing by the moment, I look at my son and I often wonder what impact our time together now will have on the person he'll become someday. Over a year strong into a global pandemic, myself, my partner, and my baby have been the most at home together and with ourselves than we ever have been. All habitual truths have been exposed, and living, working, breathing in the same space has posed its natural challenges. In the past year, I've really begun to see my child step forward into his own being and seeing what positive and negative influence us as parents have had on him and his behavior towards others. He's officially stepped out into the wild to form his own connections at preschool. He's learning to deal with his emotions, he's exploring his boundaries, and his little personality is blossoming. Witnessing how fast someone can physically and mentally develop in 4.5 years really pulls into perspective how much we are actively doing the same. We're growing and learning every day as long as we open ourselves up to that. And the clock continues to tick. Parenting has made me more aware and has also truly tested my patience and my boundaries. It's made me realize how our poor loved ones have the luxury of seeing the best and the worst of us. It's the ones we love the most that we typically take most for granted and present ourselves to in a more foul manner. And in doing so, cycles are formed based off of our influence. Jody had said this in her interview, and I'm going to mimic it because literally it was as if the words came out of my own mouth. But every day, Mama, give me a second. Mama, I'm on the phone. Wait a second. Mama. I said 5 minutes. Wait, just wait. Can't you wait 5 minutes? Now he does this to me. Remy, what? Remy, I'm watching a video. Remy, can you? I said, give me 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my goodness, this sounds like me. Learn behavior. We all do this. We dismiss each other's needs because we deem our needs more important in that moment. And everyone else just needs to be a little bit more patient. Don't we all just need a little more attention? Or maybe it is about connection, just as Dr. Jody has said. How does connection make you feel? How about general acknowledgement? What does that mean to you? As I had mentioned, last night with the claps, and playing out as a performer, I realized this on the every performance. My whole role in life is built off of these connections, and it really could turn my entire performance around if I felt like I had a response. If I felt like what I was doing was more meaningful. And it's great to be acknowledged at any point in the day, in the evening, right? But taking that moment to let someone know ahead of time, like, hey, you're doing awesome, that could really just mean the world. Because for 3 hours I thought no one cared, and overall I felt very little acknowledgement in every sense from the 60 bodies that were in the house. But had those 6 people had chosen engaged earlier, had somebody more confidently clap, my mood would have been lifted. And this applies to anything. Without connection, without acknowledgement, we remain distant. Simple gestures of acknowledgement can truly change the way someone carries on with their day. A smile, a wave, a hello, a nod, a wishing, hey, have a nice day. Asking someone, how are you? A simple compliment can make someone feel seen, lift their mood, and make them feel more confident in their purpose. What makes us human is our ability to feel and to harvest those connections. Connection is just as much a need as it is a want for many, and how we treat one another is learned and it's contagious. Empathy and general compassion are simple gestures which we connect with one another and positively lead by example. When we feel connected, we feel more confident and therefore we thrive. In business, connection is why customer loyalty exists. In life, it's what drives our confidence to sink or swim. It's what makes us feel worthy, loved, and understood. And when it comes to connecting with ourselves, it's that peace and acceptance we find within. There are so many layers. The point is, it starts here and here. So take a moment to find the joy and to think with your heart. People will always remember the way you made them feel, good or bad. So please choose to lead with kindness. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Dr. Jody, you rock. Thank you so much. And we will see you guys back here on Monday with Adam Eden. Big thank you to Beau Productions. And to our show sponsors, Rochester Woman Online, Chris Sirianni at IT Insights, Rock.com, also to James Farley at Northwestern Mutual, to Maiden Voyage Studios, and Bridget Hoag at Empire Realty. You all have a beautiful weekend. I will see you next time. Bye.